I'm going to show you, I'm going to take you across this speed bump down here at a healthy rate of speed. Right now we're running about 20 miles per hour. You can see they handle bumps real well. So this is at about 20. Again, you can see that's a pretty healthy bump. I'm going to go over it slow so you can see it react in more of a normal environment. That's a pretty good speed bump. That was right about 10 miles an hour. I'll do that one again just so you can see it. You can see that's a healthy speed bump. It's probably a good 3.5, 4 inch tall speed bump. Hey guys, so now that I'm off the bike, let's talk about these shocks a little bit. They are 1.5 inches lower than the factory shock. What's nice about these shocks is they have 3 inches of travel where the factory shocks had 2 inches of travel. So given that 1.5 inches lower, it didn't eliminate your suspension travel. Most time when you lower use a shock that lowers your bike, instead of having that factory 2 inches of travel, you get an inch knocked off of your travel, and it, you know, it just doesn't do well, you know. These shocks, I have that 3 inches of travel. They do really well over bumps, and as you can see by going over this speed bump, I picked this speed bump because it's a steep, hard speed bump, and it's probably 3.5, 4 inches tall. So I know everybody that did the MSF course, they made you ride over the 2x4, so you could mimic hitting debris in a road, you know. So I mean, that was a pretty hefty hit, and you can see the shock performed flawless. I did not feel it bottom out, you know, and that's another big thing with this shock is my old shocks, even though they only dropped the bike 1 inch, I would bottom out going down out my driveway, and I would scrub my exhaust, and yeah, it wasn't good, you know. And this shock, I was really nervous when I got it because it was 1.5 inches lower instead of 1 inch lower, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, how can I go 1/2 inch lower and not scrub? So I was really expecting to scrape as I came out my driveway. And with my new exhaust I put on it and all these upgrades, I went to a 2-into-1, so my thought process was to make a hard left out of my driveway so that side of my bike would lean over and give a little more clearance for exhaust. But I haven't had to do that. I'm able to come in and out of my driveway and it doesn't scrape. And the only thing I can attest that for is it dampens better than the old shocks. Old shocks, I think, they didn't control the downward force as well. So now the bike don't bounce as hard when it goes over a bump to the point where it allows the exhaust to hit the ground. And it's, man, I'm gonna tell you, they've done phenomenal job. When we rode up to VAM, highways rode great, bridge transitions were nice. I didn't have near the problems. My wife is a much happier person on the back of my bike. The old shocks, they got to where they wasn't dampening very well, and on top of that, they were, you know, just a moderate upgrade to a factory shock, so they really just didn't do that well of a job compared to these shocks. Now, you're not comparing apples to apples either, because those shocks were literally probably 1/3 to half the price of this shock. But bang for buck, I could have took a third or half that money and went ahead and put it towards this shock, and I should have done that to begin with instead of cheaping out. I'll tell you another good thing about these shocks too is their customer service, man. Phenomenal company. They're very good about communicating with you. I sent them an email request for a quote, and man, it was not long. I got a reply back very quickly, and I email people at weird hours too, because I work night shift. And man, Brian was on his A game. That man, he started emailing back and forth with me, and he was asking me all kinds of questions, like if I had a tour pack, do I go 2 up, he wanted to know all my riding information, and he wanted to tune those shocks specifically to me. And so, it's hard to argue with that. It's hard to argue with that kind of customer service. And then he asked me how to give him an input on how I liked them after I got them. So I'm doing this video partially for that and partially for a review, so y'all know that this is a good product and that this is a good company to do business with. And I bought these shocks on my money. This is not a sponsorship. None of this was paid for me. I came out of pocket completely on these shocks myself, and and I wouldn't hesitate to do it again. And if you're new to this channel, hit that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and we look forward to getting more videos like this out to y'all.